Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you how to play one of my favorite songs, Summertime. Now, first off, I gotta give big props to Steven for writing a gorgeous arrangement of this tune, which, by the way, I got a chance to play throughout the entire song this afternoon, and it kind of brought to mind an interesting thought that I wanted to share with you guys. So I jumped into learning it after I watched his performance. And I gotta say that when I was watching his performance, I really thought this song was going to be a lot harder to play than it really was. From just watching it, I thought it was going to be at that advanced level. But as I jumped into actually learning it, from a fingerstyle playing perspective, it's really well suited for the intermediate player. So what gives? Why does it look and sound harder than it actually is? Well, I think it comes down to how Steven is playing the piece. Because if you go back and you watch his performance, I want you to keep an eye out for a couple things, like how he's accenting certain hits and it really makes it pop, and how he's putting a little bit of rubato in sections, like he's slowing down a little bit, and it adds a lot of emotion to the music in that section. And it's these little subtle things that he's doing that really make the piece come alive. So as you get into this intermediate level of playing, that's kind of what you want to start thinking about, not just playing the correct notes, which you should play the correct notes, but how you're playing those notes. Now, if this is a new concept for you, I'd highly encourage you to watch this lesson as you go through the lesson on Summertime, so watch it in conjunction. And it's going to expand on those little couple ideas that I shared with you. It'll give you more ideas on ways that you can add more emotion to your playing. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the lesson. Now, in this video, Steven's going to be teaching you how to play the entire tune. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, that's going to be available at this link, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com and do a search for Summertime. Now, also on that page will be the on-screen tab player. So this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this tune. The one thing that I do want to say, it is for high G, so grab your high G ukulele for this lesson, and I will see you at the end of the video.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this lesson on Summertime by George Gershwin. Now this has to be just one of the best tunes ever written. It was originally written by Gershwin all the way back in 1934, and it was written for one of his first operas, I think his first opera called Porgy and Bess. And today it is one of, if not the most covered songs of all time. And I can totally understand why, because it's just an incredible tune. In the opera, it's initially sung by the character Clara as a lullaby to her child. And the lyrics and the music, they're just beautiful. And although it's composed in the jazz style, it was intended as a folk song for the opera. And I think it kind of blends those two styles effortlessly. And despite having quite a melancholy sound to it, I think it just has this really cool, uplifting feel that just always makes me think of, well, summertime. So good job, George. Well done. Anyway, enough of my ramblings. You want to learn this tune, so grab your ukulele and let's get into it. I've arranged this piece in 4/4 time, so we have our 4 quarter notes to the bar, but to achieve that kind of laid back jazzy feel that we want, we're going to be playing swung 8th notes rather than just straight 8th notes. Now Andrew will have a whole lesson on swung 8th notes and what that means and the theory behind it. He'll do a much better job of explaining that than I can, but I just want to quickly demonstrate to you sort of what I mean by swung 8th notes versus straight 8th notes, just so you know what's going on for this arrangement in this lesson. So with straight 8th notes, we basically take each beat and we just split it in half, and that makes our 8th note in between the 2 beats, which we all know. We have our basic 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's a really basic rhythm, eighth notes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So with swung eighth notes, rather than playing that eighth note or the and bang in the center of the beat, we just delay it a little bit and play it towards the end of the beat. Now from a theory point of view, what we're essentially doing is, instead of splitting the beat in half and playing the eighth note bang in the center of the beat, what we do is we split the beat into thirds, and basically then we're playing triplets. And then what we do is we play the eighth note on that kind of, I suppose, 2/3 of the way through the beat. So if you imagine we play our 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if we split each one into thirds, so we have triplets, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And then if we miss out that kind of second or middle part of each triplet and we just play on each beat, 1, miss out the tri, but then play the plet, 1 triplet, and then play the next beat, 2 triplet, 3. Okay, so what we get is 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Now, if we take all that complicated triplet counting out, and we wouldn't count triplets when we're doing this and playing with swung eighth notes in this swing feel, we don't, or I certainly don't count these triplets. This is just to demonstrate the theory of kind of how this works. So if we take all the triplet counting out, what we would have is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if we compare that to just straight eighth notes without that swing feel, we would have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. If we delay that eighth note towards the end of the beat, we get the swung feel or the swing feel, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so if you're not interested in all the theory, that's fine, just ignore it. All you really need is that last demo that I just did there, where you can just play this by feel. We're just after that swing feel, a triplet feel, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so I said I wasn't going to get into the theory, and I just dove straight deep into the theory, so apologies for that. I know what you're thinking, just shut up Steve and just teach us how to play this tune, will you? Alright, I'm on it, let's do it. So the intro, or the A section, is just the first 2 measures of this piece, measures 1 and 2, and all we're doing with the intro really is just kind of alternating between these 2 chords, a G minor chord and a D7 chord, just to kind of set up that swing feel, that vibe, this summertime vibe that we want. We'll just get that kind of rhythm flowing in these first measures, ready to set the song up for the vocal melody, which comes in just at the end of the introduction bit here. So for the first measure, we're going to be playing, and that's it. And what we do is we repeat that measure 3 times. So for the whole sort of introduction, the first 3 measures of 4 would just be this 3 times. Okay, so that's our measure 1 repeated 3 times there. So the rhythm we're playing is 1, 2, 3 and 4. That's swing feel, so 3 and 4, we get that going. So if we start with beat 1, we're just going to have this G minor chord being held, and we'll just play that whole chord, all 4 strings, with a down strum on beat 1. And then we'll play it again on beat 2. And the music doesn't have the G string open as part of the notation. It could have, it doesn't need to miss the G string. If you hit all 4 strings again, that's fine. So I'm really just doing 2 down strums of that G minor chord on beats 1 and 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to move to this open version of a D7 chord. So what we'll do, think about our efficient finger movements. The 3rd finger is going to come off completely. We don't need that one. And as we do that, the pinky is going to drop onto the A string at the 3rd fret. We're going to hop this 2nd finger down to the, or up to the E string at the 2nd fret. And we'll swing our 1st finger round onto the G string at the 2nd fret. And then while we'll do that, you will see our wrist kind of moves around. We want that to happen. That's going to help us get our 1st finger round and over the top, so it's not muting that open C string, because we want that open C string to ring. So we're going to bring our wrist round so we can swing that index finger over. So we hold our D7 chord on beat 3 and then play that. And then what we're going to do is like a down, up, down. So on 3 and 4, we play 3, then just an up strum for the and, the swung 8th note, and then a down strum again on that same chord for beat 4. So 3 and 4. So the whole measure, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then we just repeat that, as I say, 3 times in total. And then on to measure 2 for the end of the intro. It starts very much the same way. So what we're going to play is... Okay, so we can hear those first 2 notes there are summer of summertime, the start of the song. So if we look at what we're doing there, we're playing the rhythm 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Okay, and we're playing that and again with our swing feel. So if we look at the beginning, beat 1, just like measure 1, got a G minor chord, down strum on beat 1, strumming again on beat 2, just the same as measure 1, and then again, same as measure 1, switching to this D7 chord on beat 3. But where this is different now, we're going to play it, and we're just going to cut it out. We'll play that staccato, we'll cut it, just so that the vocal melody now kind of pops out and we know we're into the verse. So we play that on beat 3, staccato, cut it off, either by kind of taking the pressure off the strings as you play it, or use the right hand just to mute the strings when you play it. And then on beat 4, we're going to take all that shape off because we don't need that, and come up to the 5th fret on the A string and just pick that single note. That's su of summertime, and then we'll play the E string at the 6th fret. So what we'll do is use our second finger, we'll leave that first finger on so that first note rings as we play the second note on the and after beat 4. We play this E string at the 6th fret, use that second finger. Okay, and that's on the and after beat 4. So that measure 2 would be... Okay, so if we look at it all together, the whole intro should sound like this. Okay, so let's have a go at playing that whole intro with the repeats of measure 1. So we'll play those full 4 measures of the introduction together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Onto the B section, theme 1, we're still going to be playing these kind of alternating G minor and D7 chords. This kind of sound continues into the main sort of verse section, but because our melody takes us a little bit up and down the neck, we're going to be playing some different versions of these chords in different positions just to allow us to play the chord and the melody kind of at the same time. So if we look at measure 3, the beginning of theme 1 here, the B section, we're going to be starting on that G minor chord. I'm going to play the same rhythm as measure 1 from the intro, 1, 2, 3 and 4, but instead of playing the G minor down here, because we're currently up at the 5th fret, because we're going to continue from the end of the intro, so at the end of measure 2 we had just played those 2 notes there. Now we want, from a melody point of view, we want to finish off that summer time, so our first kind of note of the B section here, measure 3, is that word time, summer time. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play a new version of a G minor, which is this shape here, and we'll play that full chord on beat 1. But we want to make sure we really pick out that A string at the 5th, because that's our melody note that we want to hear. Okay, so then on beat 2, we're just going to do a kind of filler strum. There's no melody here, so we're just going to kind of play that chord again, but we'll ignore that A string at the 5th. We don't really want to hit that because that's going to kind of make it sound like there's another melody note there when it isn't. So we're just going to play the bottom 3 strings, the open G, then the C and the E. Probably just with a little down strum, use the thumb or whatever you want to use. Right hand wise, as usual, you kind of do whatever you want to do, but I'll show you what I'm doing as I'm playing it. Okay, so beat 2. Just another little gentle strum off those 3 strings, and then we're going to come back down to this D7 shape that we were playing before. So this is the same D7 as the intro, but it's down here. So the way to do this, the way I'd recommend it, which makes it a little bit easier, is if we think about the second finger, that's just going to stay on the E string, and we can even keep the pressure on and just slide that finger down because it acts as a good kind of anchor point for our left hand and allows us to switch the other fingers between these two chords quite well. So from here, from this G minor chord, we're going to keep the second finger planted, but we'll take the first and the third off. But what we'll want to do with this first finger is going to want to come round over the top because it's going to play the G string at the second fret. So as we slide this finger down, and we're going to slide this down to the second fret on the E string, as I said before, keep the pressure on, literally slide it down the neck. But as we do it, swing the hand round, because think about when we get there, this one's going to drop onto the G string at the second, and the pinky's going to drop onto the A string at the third. Now you could use your third finger for that. I find that a bit of a stretch. I find that the little finger just drops on there better, but you have a little play and decide what works better for you. But as we're sliding down from the G minor, we're just going to bring the hand, the wrist kind of round, the elbow out, the wrist comes round, so you can see that finger, what happens to it, you can see that finger moves around over the top. So we slide it down to get to our D7 chord. Now at this point, that is a bit of a move, we're shifting frets and we're changing fingers to some probably or possibly unfamiliar chord shapes. You might not have come across these commonly, so maybe just stop for a moment and just practice that change. But as I say, keep that second finger on. That's your kind of anchor point that literally just slides up and down between the second and the sixth fret. And maybe practice that movement to get it nice and quick, nice and fluid, and sounding good. Okay, so on beat 3, we've come down to that D7 chord. So we play that on beat 3, and then just like the intro, we do our down, up, down strum of that chord, 3 and 4. Okay, so that measure 3 will sound like this. And then if we add in those first two notes of the melody, the end of measure 2 that lead into it, we would have. That's what we want to hear. So if we then go into measure 4, we're going to come back up to the G minor, and we'll have this. That's what we want to hear. In terms of that rhythm, what I played there is 1, 2, and 3, and. So we miss out beat 4 there. So we'll play that again. That's how we're going to play it. So beat 1 of measure 4, we're back to the G minor. So from our D7 shape we're holding at the end of measure 3, we'll use that second finger anchor point, slide it back up to the 6th, and then drop these two fingers on. So as we do it, bring the wrist kind of back under, so it's in this parallel to the neck position. So these two fingers then will just drop on nicely. And we only want to play those bottom 3 strings, the G, the C, and the E. So even though we've put the first finger on, and I would do that because we'll need that in a moment, we want to just play those 3 strings of that G minor chord. That's on beat 1. And then on beat 2, we're going to play this double stop. So we're back into the vocal melody now on beat 2. So we want to play these with a bit more volume because these are what we want to hear. We're going to play a double stop on beat 2, which is the A string at the 3rd. And the E string at the 5th, and we'll play those 2 notes together. I'd probably pick those now. You could do them with the thumb and strum them, but I'd probably pick them. And that's on beat 2. In terms of how we get there from here, again, we're going to use the wrist here to make that transition easy. Basically what we're going to do is take the 3rd finger off when we've played that beat 1, take that finger off, ready for beat 2. These 2 fingers are going to stay on those 2 strings, but that one's going to go down 2 frets to the 3rd fret. This one's just going to drop down 1 fret to the 5th. So a good way of doing this is just as we move these fingers down, again like before, bring the elbow up to the side and bring the wrist round like that. And what you'll see happen is it just kind of pulls these 2 fingers apart. As we move the wrist round, we can see it's easy then to get these 2 fingers 2 frets apart because they're currently just 1 fret apart. But when we get to the next bit, we want them 2 frets apart. Now keep the wrist where it is and just use the first finger. That gets a bit awkward to try and do that, to pull the first finger away from the second finger. If we just use the wrist, it kind of just naturally happens and it makes it really easy. Okay, so on to beat 2. From here, 3rd finger comes off, wrist round, get yourself in position there and play that double stop. and on the and after beat 2, we're going to move that whole shape just down 2 frets, so keep everything kind of where it is, but then just move it all down 2 frets to the 1st and 3rd frets on those 2 strings. Pick that double stop again. That's the and after beat 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to come up to the 3rd fret on the A string. So I'd use the 3rd finger for that. And we're just going to pick that single note. You could take these other 2 off as you do that. So we'll pick that single note, A string at the 3rd on beat 3. And then the and after beat 3, we're going to come up to the 5th fret. Now I like to do a little slide there. Pick it and slide it up, but that's up to you. If that's a bit tricky, you can just pick the 5th fret at the A string. That's fine, but the little slide just has a little sort of dynamic sound to it there. So the and after beat 3, we're just on the A string at the 5th fret. Then we let that ring, we just pause for a bit there, let that ring over the beat 4. And then the and after beat 4, at the end of this measure, we're going to come down with our 1st finger and just pick the A string at the 1st fret. And that's the end of that measure, the and after beat 4. So from the beginning, we would have this G minor, or most of a G minor shape, just as a little kind of filler sound on beat 1, and then the melody onto beat 2. That's what we want to go for. So if we look at measures 3 and 4 together, what we would hear is, in fact, I'll play the last 2 notes of measure 2, as well the last 2 notes of the intro, that, just so we can hear that. So we would have... Okay, brilliant. So let's have a go at playing measures 3 and 4 there together, nice and slowly, and we'll do that now. 1, 2, 3, 4. On to measures 5 and 6. What we're going to play now, if I play them through for you, we'll have... That's what we're going for in those 2 measures. So if we just look at measure 5, what we would have is... Okay, so the rhythm there for measure 5 is 1, 2 and 3, 4 and then on beat 1, all we're doing is playing the open G string. So at the end of the previous measure, measure 4, we've played the A string first, just that single note. But what we'll do now is, as we go into measure 5 and play this G string open on beat 1, we'll just add the rest of our G minor chord on as we do that. So on beat 1, we pick the open G, but we've now got our full G minor chord held. So on beat 2, what we'll do is then just strum that full G minor chord. And then the and after beat 2, we'll pick that open G again. And then straight after on beat 3, we're going to go to this D7 chord, but slightly different version to before. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this 3rd finger down a fret to the 2nd. As we do that, we'll take everything else off, but don't take the miles away because we need them. They're going to come round and play like a full D chord. Now, in terms of the ukulele you're playing and the size of your fingers, you can play them all in line, but if you've got big fingers or a small ukulele, that'll be hard to squeeze in. I tend to do it that way round because I can fit my fingers in better. It's a tenor ukulele, so I find that easier. So you decide whichever version of the D you like, but then we're going to add our pinky on to the A string at the 3rd fret just to make it 7th chord. So there's our D7, and then we're going to play not the full chord to begin with. On beat 3, we're just going to pick out this C note or C string at the 2nd fret, but that's now part of our D7 chord. So the beat 3, we just pick that single note, and then on beat 4, we then strum this full chord, our D7, and then we take it off to open up the G string, ready for that final note of this measure, the and after beat 4, open G with the thumb. As we do it though, I would just take these top 2 fingers off and then bring this 3rd finger back up to the 3rd fret, because when we head into measure 6, we're then going to put this G minor chord back on. And again, we're just alternating between the G7, the G minor and the D7. This is what we're doing here. Okay, So this finger here just kind of flips between the 2nd and the 3rd fret. It's at the 3rd fret for the G minor, but it's at the 2nd fret for the D7. Okay, so if we look at measure 5 again, that's what we want to hear. So straight into measure 6, we've moved our 3rd finger back up to the 3rd fret, so we'll put the rest of our G minor chord on. And then on beat 1 of measure 6, we'll just play that E string at the 3rd to begin with, not the full G minor chord, just that single note. That's beat 1. Then on beat 2, we will now play that full G minor chord, down strum on that. And then the and after beat 2, we'll just hit that open G string again, probably with a thumb. And then what we're going to do on beat 3 is we're going to do a couple of double stops again. So we're going to come all the way up to the 5th fret. So in terms of this shape, keep the 1st finger on. Maybe take the pressure off so we don't get the slide sound, because we probably don't need it here. Have a little play if you like the slide sound, you keep it in. But I'd probably take the pressure off there, bring this 1st finger up to the 5th fret on the A string, but we want to play that with the E string at the 6th fret. So use the 2nd finger for that. On that double stop, that's on beat 3. And then let that ring to beat 4, when we're then going to slide it all the way down. And then on beat 4, we're going to play this double stop here with the A string at the 1st and the E string at the 3rd. Okay, so again, like before, because those are 1 fret apart, we'll have our wrist under. As we slide these 2 down, we'll bring the wrist round to separate those 2 fingers, so they're now 2 frets apart down here. Okay, so that measure 6 on its own would be, and then if we put it together with measure 5, we would have, okay. Now in terms of little frills and stuff and little tricks, what you could do, which sounds quite nice, if you can do it on that beat 3 of measure 6, that double stop here, just a little vibrato on that, and then you could keep the pressure on and get that slide sound down to the 1st and 3rd fret. Okay, and we do pick them at the end there, we don't just slide them down and leave them there, we'll slide, but then pick them again on beat 4. Okay, so 5 and 6. Okay, brill. So let's have a go at those 2 measures now, played through together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So onto measures 7 and 8, they should sound like this. Okay, so that's what we're going for by the end of those 2 measures. So if we look just at measure 7, we would have, okay, so the rhythm there is 1 and 2, 3, 4. And what we're going to do, we're going to move to the C minor chord now. So we've been alternating these G minor and D7 chords all the way through. We now get this change where we go to the C minor. So we've got the 3rd fret, which we're going to bar, but a 3/4 bar, just the top 3 strings, leaving the G string open. So we'll use our 1st finger for that, just laid across all 3 strings, and then just get the pressure down. And that's what we want to hear there. So on beat 1, we play that full chord. And then the and after beat 1 is just a little up strum of that chord. On the music, it says the top 2 strings that we want to play, with it being a little up strum. If you catch just the 1st string or the first 3 strings, it doesn't really matter. It's just a little up strum sound on the and after beat 1. Then on beat 2, on beat 2, we just play that full chord again, down strum there. So beats 1 and 2, that's what we've got. And then on beat 3, what we're going to do is we're going to add our 2nd finger on. It's a bit of an awkward shape, this one. And while we're practicing, maybe take that bar off, because holding the pressure the whole time, we'll get that finger fatigue, which we don't want. So while we're practicing, put the bar on. But then if you're trying to work out where the next finger goes, take that bar off while you do it. So what we're going to do, the 2nd finger is going to loop over the top and it's going to come onto the G string at the 4th fret, but we don't want to sort of mute any of the strings underneath with the pad of that finger. So again, for this one, it's a tricky one because if we bring the wrist round to get the second finger over the top, the danger is then that it's hard to keep the pressure on with the first finger bar. As we bring our wrist under, that takes our first finger away from the fretboard, so we don't want that. So a bit of practice this one just to get a comfortable hand position where the first finger still does its bar, but the second finger loops over the top and doesn't mute anything underneath it. That's the chord we want to hear. So a tricky one that, when I'm doing it, my thumb is quite high up on the neck at the back here. It's almost at the top of the neck, it's not underneath. So again, just have a little play, take the pressure off, shake it off, go back again, and just keep practicing that shape. Tricky shape that, give it a go, take a while on that if you need to. There's no rush with this, just give that one a go. So once you've got that, that's beat 3, we play that full chord, that's beat 3. And then on beat 4, we're just going to play that same shape again, but just the bottom 3 strings, the G, the C, and the E. Okay, so that measure again would be... Okay. 1 and 2, 3, 4. So then straight into measure 8, this is all going to stay held. What we're going to do is take the pinky and put it on at the E string at the 6th fret, and then we're going to play just those 3 notes together. Sorry, we'll take that finger off as well, so the second finger that we'd looped over onto the G string, that comes off. So we just go back to our bar, which we've held all the way through measure 7, and now into measure 8, that stays on. But all we've done, we've taken that finger off and we've put the pinky on the E string at the 6th fret. And then beat 1 of measure 8, we're playing those 3 notes, the open G, the C at the 3rd, and the E at the 6th. Okay, so if we look at where we're up to, measure 7 into that beat 1 of measure 8, really we've got like just like a descending kind of note thing here, like a bass line note, even though it's quite high pitched. What we have is, that's what we want to hear. That's the whole point of this section here. So make sure when we're playing this and we're strumming it and we're picking out the right notes, that we're hearing that. There we go. And then on to beat 2, what we're going to do now is just play the 2 notes that hold in there. So this bar that we've been doing, that could probably not be a bar anymore. We can just lift the pressure off the bar, but keep the tip of that first finger where it was on the C string at the 3rd, but it doesn't need to be the bar now. Take the pressure off that. All we're going to do is play that double stop there, E string at the 6th and C string at the 3rd. That's our beat 2 of measure 8. And then we're going to play on the and after beat 2. So we're playing here 1, 2 and 3 and 4, and in fact if I just play measure 8 for you again, we would have, that's what we want to hear. Okay, so beat 1 was that, beat 2, just the 2 notes of that without the open G, then the open G on the and after beat 2, and then on beat 3 what we're going to do is play this weird shape here, this A7 flat 9 chord. What we're going to do, we're going to take the first finger, leave it on the C string, and just bring it down to the 1st fret. And then our pinky that was on the 6th, we'll keep it on the E string. That one will come down to the 3rd fret on the E string. So from here, this shape we've had, we're just going to use those 2 fingers, and they're going to come down to the 1st and 3rd. And then what we'll do, we'll put on the 2nd finger onto the A string at the 1st fret to complete that shape. Okay, so it's not too, the weird shapes and unfamiliar chord shapes, but in terms of the transition from here, it's not too bad if we just use those 2 fingers and then put our 2nd finger on. It's not too bad a change. It's a little bit freaky, but it's not too bad. Okay, so beat 3 is those 3 notes, the A, the E and the C, the chord shape that we're holding there. That's on beat 3. Then the and after beat 3, the open G, but keep that held, let it ring out. And then on beat 4, we'll pick that A string at the 1st again, which is part of our chord. Pick that single note. And then what we're going to do on the and after beat 4, the end of this measure, we're going to keep everything else on, but we'll take that finger off, that 2nd finger, to open up the A string because we want that open A as our final note of that measure there, the and after beat 4. Single note pick there on the open A. Okay, so actually at the end of measure 8 there, I've changed my mind. What we're going to do when we play that open A string, rather than just taking that finger off and keeping them on, just take the whole thing off. So at the end of measure 8, the and after beat 4, take that whole shape off to play that open A. So again, that would be whole shape off, open A. Okay, so 7 and 8. Okay, tricky little pair of measures, those ones, some different sort of chord shapes and tricky transitions, so maybe spend a bit of time practicing those two. What we'll do now, we'll have a go at playing 7 and 8 together, nice and slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. On to measures 9 and 10, what we'll have for these two measures is okay, so that's what we want to hear by the end of these two. So measure 9 on its own, we would have okay, so the rhythm I've played there is 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and then we're going to start on this open D chord, so just a straight D, all the second fret on the G, C and E, then the open A, that's on beat 1, just that chord, and then on beat 2, a little bit of a stretch to do. Now you could do this the bar chord way, but it's tricky because we want the open A to begin with, so I'd probably recommend doing it that way, so we get that open A sound. And then stretch the pinky up to the 5th fret whilst holding that. That's on beat 2. If that's too much for you, you could possibly play the D chord on beat 1 and then go to the bar chord version of it for beat 2, but you decide whatever works. If you can keep that held and stretch up to the 5th with the pinky, that probably would be better. So beat 2 is that chord there. Okay, then the and after beat 2, we're going to bring that down a fret, the pinky there, to the 4th fret on the A string. Just pick that single note, that's the and after beat 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to make this a D7 chord by bringing it down one more fret to the 3rd fret, and then strum that whole chord. But then what we want to do is go to the open A, which is why keeping this shape held is better than going to the bar chord, because then we can just take that pinky off and we've got our open A there ready to go. Okay, so that measure up to that point there. Okay, brilliant. Then what we're going to do is come up to this other crazy chord. We've got a D flat 7 sharp 9 chord. Don't worry too much about that. All we want to do is put our fingers in the right place, which is going to be the E string at the 4th, the C string at the 5th, which we'll play with our second finger, so 1st and 2nd fingers on there, and then we're going to go to the 7th fret on the A string, and we'll play that with the pinky. Okay, so those 3 notes together, we'll avoid the open G, because that sounded a bit horrible, so just those 3 notes, the C, the E, and the A. That's on beat 4, and then the and after beat 4, we're going to bring that down a fret, just to the 6th, and just play that on its own, but keep those on because we're just going to move those into the next measure up a fret, so they'll stay on there ready to go. So that measure again. Okay, brill. Now when I play this, I think it sounds really good for these two measures 9 and 10 to break that swung 8th note feel and go back to straight 8th notes. So rather than playing, which would be the swung feel, if we just go back to regular straight 8th notes, it just kind of changes feel a little bit, adds a bit more sort of a dynamic sound to your playing. I think it sounds quite good there, just breaking that 8th note feel. It can be difficult to do if you're into that kind of swung 8th note feel and then you try and switch back to regular straight 8th notes. that can be a difficult rhythmic change. And if you don't like it, or you don't want to, or you can't, that's fine. This is music, you play it how you want, it's your interpretation, but I think it sounds quite good there. Just to break that swung feel for those two measures. But as I say, entirely up to you what you want to do. So measure 9, we've just played it. If we go straight into measure 10, what we're going to do now is we're going to move these two fingers up. The pinky will come off. We'll move these two fingers that we're playing up 1 fret. So they stay on the same strings, they move up a fret, but then this first finger will flatten down to make a little half bar at the 5th fret. So it's playing the A and the E at the 5th, and then we play those 3 notes. That's the beat 1 of measure 10. So measure 10 is... that's what we want to hear. So beat 1 is that chord, just a version of a D chord higher up the neck. Play it again on beat 2, and then again on beat 3. So nice and simple there. And then what we're going to do is on the and after beat 3, go to the A string at the 5th, which we are playing as part of that chord, but I tend to just take that off and use the first finger just to play that single note, because I like a little bit of vibrato on that, just to add a bit of something to it. So although we could play it as part of that chord, which we've been holding in this measure so far, I like to take it off and just play it single. So and after beat 3, single note pick, A string at the 5th. On beat 4, same note again, pick it once more, then the and after beat 4, keep it on, but add the second finger to the E string at the 6th, and then play that at the end of that measure there. So 9 and 10 again, we would have... Okay, that's what we're going for. So let's have a go at playing those two measures through together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So onto the C section, theme 2. We've got a little bit of repetition going on here. The first 3 measures of this section, measures 11, 12 and 13, are just the same as measures 3 to 5 from theme 1. So if we look at where we were at the end of measure 10 in the previous bit we looked at, we played these 3 notes. And then that leads into this theme 2, measure 11, but as I say, 11, 12 and 13, now we've seen before, we just carry on from there with... Okay, so that's the end there of measure 13. So we'll skip them because we've seen them before, but we'll now look at measure 14 because this now goes a little bit different. We've got a new bit coming on here. So the end of measure 13, we go into this measure 14, which is... Okay, so that's measure 14. But what we'll do for this little section, we'll look at measures 14, 15 and 16 together. We'll do 3 measures here because they all follow quite well from each other. So what we would have is, if I play measure 13 as well, and then into 14, 15 and 16, which we'll look at now. So we'd have... That's what we're going for here with these 3 measures. So measure 14 on its own is just... So all we're playing there rhythmically is just on the beat 1, 2, 3, 4. So at the beat 1 we're holding our G minor chord just in first position here, but we're just going to pick out the E string at the 3rd for beat 1. So single note pick on beat 1. Then we'll strum the full chord on beat 2, and then we're going to go to this alternative version of a D7 chord. So we'll slide this finger down a fret to the 2nd, and we'll bring the 2nd finger up to the G string at the 2nd and play that chord on beat 3. Then on beat 4 we'll just hop that 2nd finger over onto the C string at the 2nd, and we'll take that one off as we do it. So when we play this note C string at the 2nd on beat 4, that's the only note we're holding with our 2nd finger there. We just pick that single note on beat 4. Okay, so that's what we've got there. So straight into measure 15, we're now going to go to this B flat chord. So we'll keep our second finger on at the second of the C string, sorry, because that's part of our B7 chord, B flat chord, sorry. So what we'll do, we'll put the first finger on the E string at the first and the third finger onto the G string at the third. That completes our B flat chord. We play those 3 notes, not the open A, we don't want that. We're just playing those 3 notes that we're holding. So beat 1 is that there. And this measure will progress, it will sound like this. That's what we're trying to play. So the rhythm there is 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So beat 1 was that B flat chord. Beat 2, and then the and after beat 2 are just part of that chord. So we just pick out the C string at the second, then the and after beat 2, the E string at the first. That's part of the chord. Then what we're going to do on beat 3, we're going to switch to this G minor 7 chord. But we haven't got a huge amount to do. What we'll do is we'll take the third finger off. That'll stay on, because that's part of our G minor 7 chord. And the first finger will stay on, but it'll just flatten down so that it bars the first 2 strings. So we've got the A and the E barred at the first fret, and then the C string at the second being held there. But the note we want to hear, the melody note that we're after, is actually the G, the open G. So this bit here, we're going to do an up strum. This is important, this bit that we do the up strum, because we want to hear that note there. That's our melody. Okay, so beat 3 is an up strum of that chord, and the and after beat 3, we play the A string at the first as part of that chord. And then on beat 4, we go back to that open G and just pick that single note. Okay, so measure 15 there would be, and that little G string open, just a little tap, a little filler note. Don't want to hear it too loud. It's just a little tap to keep that rhythm going. So with measure 14 into measure 15, we would have, so we go into measure 16 now, what we would hear is, okay, so that's what we want for measure 16. So the rhythm there for measure 16 is 1 and 2, 3, 4, and. Okay, so beat 1 is this E flat 7 chord. So what we'll do is we'll bar the 3rd fret, a little bit like the C minor chord that we had before, but then we're going to add on this A string at the 4th fret. Now, probably makes sense to use your 2nd finger there in terms of 1st finger on that fret, that's the next finger. But again, that feels a bit stretched for me. I find it easy just to drop my 3rd finger on there. So you choose whichever finger you think is best, but I tend to go for my 3rd. And play that chord there. So beat 1 is that full chord, and then we're going to take that finger off, whichever one you choose to use, take it off to just play the 3rd fret on the A string. That's the and after beat 1. Then on beat 2, we'll go straight in and play the open G, a little tap on that, but again not too loud, little tap just to fill in that space. And then we're going to go back to this A7 flat 9 chord that we've seen before. So from here, I would probably lift that 1st finger bar up, but keep the finger where it is and just slide it down to the 1st fret. And then we'll put the other 2 fingers on like we did before to hold this shape here. And we play that on beat 3. And then on beat 4, we'll keep the 2nd finger on, but take those 2 off. And put this 3rd finger, which is spare, we haven't been using that one, we're going to use it now. We're going to drop it onto the E string at the 2nd to make this kind of other version of a D7 chord. And then what we're going to do is play those 3 strings, the C, open C, the E and the A, just those 3 together, and then a little tap again of the open G, just to finish off there. Okay, so that measure 16. That's what we've got there. Okay, so 14, 15 and 16 together. Brill. So let's have a go at playing those 3 measures now through together. 1, 2, 3, 4. measure 17 and 18 now. Those two measures together should sound like this. Okay, so that's what we're going for. So measure 17 in isolation is... Okay, so the rhythm there is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then what we're going to do is a G minor chord we're starting with. So we'll hold this G minor chord and we'll just pick out the two middle strings for now, the E and the C, just that double stop there. That's on beat 1. But then on beat 2, we can do a kind of full strum of it. The music doesn't show the open G being played, but you could play the open G, just a down strum of that chord to get that G minor sound. So that's beat 2. And then on beat 3, we're going to go back to our D7 chord, which we've seen before. Okay, so that one there. And then that's on beat 3. Just a down strum of that on beat 3. But then for this last little bit here, the and 4 and, we're just going to play the A string at the 4th. So we'll just flick our pinky up a fret to the 4th. Play that on the and after beat 3. Then on beat 4, come back to the 3rd fret, pick it again, and then go to the 1st fret. So what we'll do here is we'll use the 1st finger, so take the pinky off and put the 1st finger on at the A string at the 1st behind it, and then play that on the and after beat 4. Okay, so we'd have... And then into measure 18, we're then going to go back into our G minor chord. So keep the 1st finger on, because that's fine, we need that one, and then just use these 2 fingers to fill out that G minor chord again, and just play the E, C and the G string on beat 1. And then at measure 18, we're playing 1, 2, 3 and 4, and so same rhythm actually as measure 17. So beat 1 is the G minor, beat 2, a strum of the G minor again, but incorporating that A string at the 1st. Okay, that's beat 2. And then beat 3, again we go back to that D7 chord, but a bit like we did in the intro, we could make that staccato, we could just cut that, okay, or even slide it up as we cut it off. Finish there on beat 3, and then the and 4 and, we're going to go for the A string at the 5th, and after beat 3, beat 4, play it again, the and after beat 4, go to this E string at the 6th, like we've seen before. Okay, so measure 18, we would have... There we go. So measure 17 and 18 together. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures now through together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So onto the D section, theme 3. These 2 measures we'll look at first, 19 and 20. They're kind of based roughly or loosely on measures 3 and 4 from the first theme, but just a little bit more going on, a little bit more funky. So we'll look at them now because there's a bit more to learn. So it's still based on this alternating G minor D7 sequence, but as I say, a little bit more going on. So for 19 and 20, if I play them for you, what we will have, and in fact I'll play those last 3 notes of measure 18. That lead into 19 and 20, just so it flows a bit better, and they should sound like this. Okay, so that's what we're going for. So measure 19 would be this. Okay, so that's what we're going to aim for there. So beat 1, in fact the rhythm here is 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and that's what we're playing. So beat 1 is this G minor up at the 5th fret, which we've seen before. So beat 1, full strum on that, but then the and after beat 1, we want to hear that A string at the 5th again. So we'll have that probably as an up strum. Yeah, probably strum that. So beat 1, up strum for the and after beat 1 to pick it again, and then on beat 2, maybe do a down strum, but now ignoring that A string. So the down strum now is just of the G, the C and the E. Okay, so 1 and 2. That's our first part. Then on to 3 and 4 and. We're going to come down to this D7 chord. So again, slide that second finger down just like before, and then put these 2 fingers on with the wrist coming out just like we looked at. So beat 3 is this D7 chord. And then the and 4 and is just this little A string kind of funky bit where we go 4, 3, 1. Okay, so 3 and 4 and. And again, a little sort of frill here. What I like to do is when I've played the chord on beat 3, rather than moving that straight to the 4th and picking it on the and after beat 3, keep it on the 3rd fret, but do that kind of pick and slide. So pick it on fret 3, but as soon as you pick it, slide it up to the 4th fret. And what we get is. There we go. Just sounds a bit funky rather than. Just sounds quite cool. So try that if you want. If you want to leave that, that's fine. Your choice. It works perfectly well just by picking the notes. But I like that little flick. Okay, so that's measure 19. Straight into 20, we're then going to hit this G minor chord. So like before, the first finger stays on. These 2 fingers complete the G minor, and we just play those bottom 3 strings of the G minor, the E, the C, and the G, on beat 1. So measure 20 all the way through would be. That's what we're going for. So the rhythm there is 1 and 2 and 3 and so we miss out beat 4. So from that G minor, beat 1, we've just played those bottom 3 strings. Then we're going to go and do some slidey double stop things. So the and after beat 1, we want to jump up to this A string at the 5th, E string at the 6th, first 2 fingers, pick that on the and after beat 1. And then we'll use our wrist movement to get to the next double stop, because straight after on beat 2, we want to move these down, but the first finger wants to come down 2 frets, and the second finger just comes down just 1 fret. So again, move the wrist round to spread those fingers out. So we play that double stop there, 3 and 5. That's on beat 2. And then we move that down 2 frets to 1 and 3. Seen this before. That's the and after beat 2. And then this finishes like previous measures, where we then go up to the A string at the 3rd fret with the 3rd finger, and then up to the 5th for the and after beat 3, let that ring over beat 4, and then back down to the 1st fret on the A for the and after beat 4. Okay, so as I say, it's based on measures 3 and 4, so you'll see that it's similar, it's got a little bit more going on. Okay, so 19 and 20, once again, we would have. Brill. So let's have a go at playing those 2 measures together now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So once we've played measure 20, the rest of this theme now, theme 3, we've seen before, it's all repetition. So measures 21 all the way through to the end of this section, 26, are familiar. So we won't go through them again because they're all repeats, as I say. So if I play these 2 measures we've just learned, 19 and 20, these were new measures. I'll play them again, but I'll just finish off theme 3, and you'll see that the rest of these measures are all just repeats. Okay, so the whole of theme 3, starting from measure 19. So up to that point there, that's the end of measure 26, that's the end of the D section, but as I say, all repeats there for those last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measures of that theme. So on to theme 4, the D section. Again, we've got a lot of repetition here. In fact, all this theme is the same as previous measures, except for 31, which is based on a previous measure. It just has a little something extra in it just to make it a bit different, just to differentiate this section from previous sections. So the start of theme 4, if I play it for you, is all familiar. So measures 27, 28, 29 and 30. I'll play these because we've done them all before. What we would have is so up to that point there, that's the end of measure 30. So now we're going to go into 31, which is based on this measure, which we've played before, but I've just put a little triplet in there just to make it a bit different, just to differentiate it, like I said, from the previous time we've played it. So instead of that, we would have, so it sounds largely the same, it's just got that little triplet frill in just to make it a bit funkier. So what we're going to do is we're going to play 1 and 2 triplet, 3 and 4. So beat 2 is basically a triplet, so we have 1 and 2 triplet, 3 and 4. So a little bit freaky, but once you get it and it clicks in your head, it flows quite nicely. It's quite easy to do. 1 and 2 triplet, 3 and 4. So what we'll do, our B flat chord, we're starting with that one. We play just the E, C and G strings, not the A string. So we play that on beat 1. Then the and after beat 1, we hit that G string at the 3rd. And then beat 2 and our triplet, so 2 triplet, is just the notes of this chord. We're just picking the notes, the C string first, then the E string, then the G string. So 2 triplet, 1 and 2 triplet. Okay, practice that a little bit. 1 and 2 triplet. That's all we're doing there. And then beats 3 and 4 are the same as the previous incarnation of this measure. We go to our G minor 7 chord, up strum, to get the open G string. That's on beat 3. Then the and, got the A string at the 1st, that's part of our chord. And on beat 4, the open G. Okay, so measure 31. And then the next 2 measures, 32 and 33, we've seen these ones before. Okay, so all familiar, we won't go through those again. What we could do though, the second time we play this, when we play it as 32 and 33, we could just change it a bit by changing how we play it. So that first chord, that E flat 7 at the start of measure 32, the second time round we do it, we could do a little slide into that chord just to differentiate it from the first time we played it. I think it was bar 16 originally. This is the same measure now, 32. But when we play it the second time round, why not do a little slide like that? Yeah, and all we do for that, start at the fret below, and then as we strum that chord, just slide those fingers into the desired frets, 3rd fret and 4th fret, from the fret below. And it just adds something different to those measures the second time round. So put them together, it would sound like this. Okay, brill. So then when we get into the outro now, again, this is all familiar. The outro is basically just the same as the intro. So measure 34 is just the same as measure 1. We play it 3 times, just like in the intro. So once again, we just have... finish the piece off, measure 35. This is maybe a bit cheesy, a bit contrived, maybe not very tasteful, but I think a piece like this just sounds brilliant finished with a minor add 9 chord. Okay, we could just go to a G minor and play it one last time and ring out, but if we go to a G minor add 9 chord, we get this. Ooh, it's alright that, isn't it? Yeah, G minor add 9. So if I play just the last bar of the outro into that measure 35, we have nice. Yeah, so let's go for a minor add 9 chord there, and we'll just kind of do a slow strum, pick those notes just to ring out and finish off. So we're just playing on beat 1 there, letting that ring out for the rest of the measure. Okay, so that completes this piece. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson and I hope you enjoy playing this awesome tune.
All right, guys, so I hope you had a lot of fun learning this tune. It's one of those timeless classic songs with a gorgeous melody. And again, I think Stephen wrote a wonderful arrangement on a beautiful tune. So I do want to give you a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs for this arrangement, you can do so by clicking this link or visiting the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for Summertime. Now, also on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab player, so you can literally hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So again, I hope you enjoyed learning this tune, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.